Okay, and we are recording.
Great. Well, welcome everyone to another of our Community Relations Forum meetings focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I am going to read the notice for our online meetings. Pursuant to recently adopted amendments to the Illinois Open Meetings Act included in Public Act 101-0640, public bodies may in certain circumstances hold entirely virtual public meetings without a quorum physically present in any one location. On March 17, 2020, Village President Lawrence R. Levine issued a declaration of emergency pursuant to the authority granted by the Village Code, the Illinois Municipal Code, and the Illinois Emergency Management Agency Act to address the health threat posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. On June 15, 2020, President Levine executed a written determination that given the ongoing emergency associated with the COVID-19 pandemic, in-person meetings of the Board of Trustees are not practical or prudent at this time and until further notice. On June 26, 2020, Governor Pritzker issued a new disaster proclamation and Executive Order 2020-43 that declared in-person attendance at public meetings of more than 50 people at the regular public meeting location to be infeasible in accordance to the Open Meetings Act, as amended by Public Act 101-0640. Governor Pritzker reissued this declaration on September 18, 2020, through a renewed disaster proclamation and Executive Order 2020-55. In accordance with the governor's renewed disaster proclamation, President Levine's declaration of emergency, and President Levine's recent determination regarding meetings of the Village Board of Trustees, President Levine determined that in-person meetings of the Community Relations Forum are not practical or prudent at this time and until further notice. Accordingly, this Community Relations Forum meeting is being conducted virtually with members participating through the Zoom webinar platform. Sharon Tanner is in the Village Hall as required by the Open Meetings Act. That was longer than last time, I think. Great. So I would like to call the meeting to order. May I please have a roll call?
I had to toggle over and unmute myself there. Absolutely. Chairperson Dipty Clark.
Yeah, here.
Member Martin Alisco. Member Margot Flanagan.
Here.
Reverend Dwayne Gary. Member Anise Moses.
Here.
Member Amy Mysell.
Here.
Member Gary Rubin.
Yes.
Member Hillary Scott.
Here.
Member Maureen Balbasori.
Here.
And Member Bob Young.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Great, thank you. The first item on the agenda is consideration of our September 16th meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Sorry, I didn't catch who made the second.
It was me, Hillary.
Hillary, okay, thank you. All right. And Reverend Gary has joined us. Hello, Reverend Gary.
Hello.
I will call the vote on that. Chairperson Dipty Clark.
Yes.
Member Margot Flanagan.
Yes.
Margot, I think you might be muted, or I think we lost.
No, yes, I said yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. My audio must have not been great. Okay. Reverend Gary?
Voting on the agenda, or what's the vote?
The meeting minutes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Member Anise Moses?
Yes.
Member Amy Mysell?
Yes.
Member Gary Rubin?
Yes.
Member Hillary Scott?
Yes.
Member Maureen Valvasori,
Yes.
and Member Bob Young.
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
Great, thank you. This is the time in the meeting when a member of the public may comment on something that is not on the agenda. I will ask Sharon to read any public comments that were submitted prior to the meeting. And after that, I will ask if any members of the public would like to comment on something that is not on the agenda. If you would like to make a comment about something that is listed on the agenda, please hold your comment until that time. If a member of the public would like to make a comment now on something that is not on the agenda, please press the raise hand button on your computer or *9 if you're on the phone. The village's public comment rules limit comments to 3 minutes.
We did receive one comment submitted by email prior to the meeting, and I will read it. It says, "Dear forum members, we at Family Service of Glencoe are grateful for all you are doing to raise awareness of and plan activities to combat racial injustice and other inequities, and to create a more welcoming and inclusive culture for all people in Glencoe. As much focus has been on race relations, including the Black Lives Matter movement, I want to take the opportunity to remind us that there are many other groups at risk of being marginalized through divisive attitudes and discriminatory practices. For example, at FSG, we've become most aware of the stigma associated with mental illness, as well as a serious lack of knowledge about dementia and the many forms it can take. We are proud to be a partner with the village in the dementia-friendly community initiative to help create a more welcoming and inclusive community, specifically in regards to dementia. I mention all this to say that eventually we hope that the forum will consider the broader spectrum of issues related to prejudicial attitudes and discrimination, including folks who may be classified as living with disability, living with dementia, living with mental illness, LGBTQ+, etc., in addition to the issues of racism. I saw in the minutes from the last meeting the very excellent suggestion to do something around MLK Day in January. There are other days or months of national recognition for many of the other issues as well, and I encourage us to think about those as well. FSG is ready and willing to collaborate with the forum on any issues where we may be able to add value. Thank you again so much for giving of yourselves to lead this important work. Bill Hansen, Executive Director, Family Service of Glencoe." And Bill is also on our call today.
That's an excellent letter. Thank you, Sharon, for sharing. And to Bill's point, it is definitely our forum's mission to have inclusion as a whole as our goal, and not just racism. And it's appropriate timing because today we are going to, work on that goal and mission statement and how we want to partner with someone like FSG going forward. Do we know who is the liaison for FSG?
I don't have that list in front of me, so I do not
Okay.
hand.
Do we have a volunteer?
I think I volunteered to do that if no one else wanted to, or not wanted to, but I feel like I.
All yours, Hillary.
I know Bill well, so that's great. I'm happy.
Okay, well, that's great. There we go. That's perfect. So Bill, Hillary will reach out to you and we can work together on ideas and partnership. Okay, the next item on our agenda is to discuss the forum's goals, mission, and some of the initiatives. We wanted to take a step back a little bit to go back from the detail to see the bigger picture, since now we have more members. And as we spoke with Larry and Phil and Sharon a couple of weeks ago, Gary and I worked on a mission statement, because one of the things we did discuss in that meeting with Larry and Phil and Sharon was it would be, yes, we do have a pledge out there that was put forward by Larry for all of us to sign. And if you haven't signed it, please do go and sign the pledge. If you need a link to it, I'd be happy to share it, or Sharon will be happy to share the link. So I think as forum members, we all definitely should stand by that pledge for diversity and inclusion. But one of the things we also thought of was, we should have a quick, small, short mission statement that, you know, we can have it readily available out there in our community so people know what the forum does. You know, community relations forum doesn't just say much by itself in the name. So having a short mission statement would be helpful. So we kind of went back to the start, worked on some words based on the pledge, and sorry, I'm bringing it up as we speak. And let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
So this is a draft of what Gary and I worked on initially, put this together as a mission statement for our forum. Now, today's agenda is packed, but I'm hoping that we can get through this mission statement, finalize it, get through our goals, and finalize those so that Gary can take those forward to the village as our recommendation to the village board. And so let's try to move along through this if you guys don't mind. So what we wrote was that the mission is to promote and further the village's strong public policy against discrimination, bigotry, and bias in any form, to support diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to encourage mutual respect, cooperation, tolerance, and understanding among those who live, work, visit, or do business in the village. I'm going to ask each one of you to please jump in, provide your comments.
We have a mission statement, do we not?
I'm sorry, what?
We have a mission statement. It's posted on the website. Correct?
I don't know if we have a mission statement.
There's
I know
a
we.
mission statement, I believe.
We do have a mission statement, but I love this one. It's well written and gets to the point.
Is there, I know there's a way, like, I've done this before where you can put up sticky notes and people can type into it and then we can all look at it, or are we just all going to sort of talk about?
I mean, we're not a large group, so I
Okay.
mean, we can just talk about it. I'll just type it in. I mean, you know, and then we can revisit it to see what it sounds like. So for example, I would start with certain words
Okay.
that mean that are in line with our goal as a forum, right? So if we haven't covered those and you can think of those, bring those up, then we can structure it.
Well, I mean, I did look at it and I was writing out some stuff. So I don't know if I could should I just read it, or how would be most helpful?
Yeah, go ahead and read it.
So I just messed around with it and I said, to promote and further the Village of Glencoe's strong public policy on behalf of diversity, equity, and inclusion, encouraging mutual respect, cooperation, community effort, and understanding for all who live, work, and visit.
Okay, can you say that one more time?
Sure. To promote and further the Village of Glencoe's strong public policy on behalf of diversity, equity, and inclusion, encouraging mutual respect, cooperation, community effort, and understanding for all who live, work, and visit. And I didn't know if it would be the village or here. I didn't know.
Okay, so what you're saying is you basically just removed the village's strong public policy against discrimination, bigotry, and bias in any form.
Yeah, I just took out being against something and instead talking about being for.
However, we are against, and the village is against discrimination and bigotry and bias, and it happens all the time. And maybe against is not the right word, but we want to move away from that, right? And so it should be mentioned here. That's my personal opinion, but I'd like to get the group's opinion.
Right, again, I went online and I'm looking at the website, and we have posted several paragraphs very eloquently describing the purpose of the Community Relations Forum. So I'm wondering why we're spending time doing what has already been done. It's quite clear. I'm certainly open to suggestions, but it's really well done, and it sounds like a number of people have not seen this statement on the website.
Well,
Bob,
Yes.
if I may,
yeah, go ahead, Gary.
thanks. This was done reviewing not only the website, which I agree with you is well written, was written by some other people, so I can say that it was very well written. And also going back to the actual ordinance
Right.
that created this body, and basically tried to separate out an actual mission statement, if you will, from all of that. There isn't anything labeled as such. And Dipti thought, and I agreed, that it might be a good, but that's just two of us, that it might be a good idea to have a short, but encompassing mission statement that we could agree on to help us, view the rest of the, whether it's a goal or a specific action, et cetera. And that's why this is separated out the way it is. Maybe in another sense, to put it simplistically, it lays it out in smaller, more manageable chunks and maybe less flowery words, in my view.
And just to add to that, it is short, it is concise, and we need it to catch attention. And so when we have a mission statement that is just, it basically has the same information that is on the website. It's just in a really short mission statement form, right? It's just a statement, and it just talks about the forum in a very short, quick way. So, again, thinking of how we're reaching out, how do we put our forum out there where people know what we do, this would be this is our mission, basically, way of doing it. So on the website, it would just be like where you have the detail, and this would be right on top. Yeah, go ahead, Marco.
Hi, I was part of the group that crafted the last mission statement, and we spent several days on it. And I'm not saying that meaning that we should keep it. What I'm saying is that what we talked about was that over the period of time that the Relations Forum, because it was the Human Relations Forum and it's now the Community Relations Forum, we've had different jobs and different goals. And at the time that we were recrafting it, we were working more on the issues of allowing residents to be part of conversations that had to do with things like the water plant. At other times, we were working on helping residents be just more involved in any village volunteer positions on any board. So we've had a wide breadth of goals and missions as part of the Relations Forum. And what I would suggest is the mission statement as drafted by you and Gary directly addresses what we are currently doing right now. So it beautifully describes what our job is currently, but I do not think that we should try and change the overall mission of the Community Relations Forum, because there may be a time in the future when hopefully we have worked through a lot of this issue and we're back to trying to make people who will be affected by a new water plant feel like they have a voice in that. So I don't think we should limit our mission to only promoting diversity and equity and inclusion when this forum is oftentimes asked to do other things. There was a time when we were helping one neighbor and another neighbor work out a dispute over a fence, and instead of suing each other. And so we will have in the future, I imagine, other missions, and to be continually changing our mission statement on in our ordinance code, it's not a horrible thing to do, but it's not necessarily necessary. Right now, our mission is, I thought, beautifully stated the way that you and Gary wrote it.
Well, thanks, Margot. One of the things I want to be clear here is we're all new to this forum, most of us. The forum, just reality check, was not really doing any mission for a certain period of time. And now we have new people on here, and we've all kind of come in here. We've been working on all these issues in our current situation, which are very directly related to diversity, inclusion, and equity. And so, yes, I agree that that there are other things that the forum could be doing and be part of, and which is why I think in this statement it is nicely, I think, mentioned, and kudos to Gary for like making sure it's all there, right? It says, encourage mutual respect, cooperation, tolerance, and understanding among those who live here. That could be across anything. It could be across a fence issue. It's just basically, it's a very general statement. So I don't know, Margot, do you think that would cover everything? Because we certainly don't want to keep changing our mission statement. Obviously, I don't know. The idea is not to change the original mission statement, and I don't think that we are. We're just making it a little more targeted and specific.
I see what you're saying. I agree that does cover. I guess what I was saying is all of this is in our current mission statement. I don't know if I would say we need a new mission statement, or if I would say we need a new current goal.
If somebody is looking at the website, does it say that is our mission statement? And is it one sentence?
It's not one sentence, but all of this information is in the current mission statement. And we kind of crafted it after the prior mission statement, which may have been the third or fourth. I don't know how many there were.
So I guess my question is, first of all, do we call it a mission statement already?
Did when we were drafting it, but I don't know what it says on the website. I have to look back and say if it's, I feel like somewhere, I think the mission statement might be in the actual ordinance.
Nope, it's not. The mission statement is not as such. First of all, the words, I appreciate the thought, but I just plagiarized the hell out of the ordinance and website and some other things. So yeah, I crafted it a little bit, but very little, because I was trying to stick to what I thought was some already very well written materials that I had at hand, and just trying to somewhat shorten it to try to, again, put it in a more modern format, if you will, for our purposes, and hopefully to make something that is useful. But if people don't think it's useful or think it's confusing, then no.
I mean, I really think it's useful, Gary. Here's my thought behind having a mission statement. It's a statement. It's not a paragraph. It's not a page. It's not a purpose of the forum. It's a mission statement. It just very concisely and clearly talks about what the forum is intended for. And if we don't have anything that concise, and it doesn't go against anything that is already crafted out there in detail, then I don't see why we cannot put this as the concise mission statement. And then of course the purpose and everything else can stay the same. It doesn't have to be changed. We're not changing everything, but we're putting some form and some structure around this wordy, lengthy per paragraph. I can't call it a statement. I really don't want to keep beating this down. So if you guys agree that we should have a mission statement, it's going to be beneficial for the image of the forum. It's going to help in the community where, you know, some short form like this is going to address quickly. It's like an elevator chat. Somebody asks, what does the forum do? We should all know our mission statement by heart to just say it. It'll take 30 seconds, right? So, you know, if you see the benefit for it, great, let's move forward. If we don't see the benefit for it in the community, then, you know, we'll scrap it.
I see the benefit for it. I always think it's important to be able to state concisely what the purpose is. And even in the last couple of weeks, as people I know have started to talk about the fact that I've joined this forum, I trip over myself a little bit when I talk about what it is that we do. So I think it's a useful thing. That's just my 2 cents.
I do too.
Thank you,
Yes,
and Gary. Thank you, and about to call him Reverend Gary. Thank you, Gary, and others. The others to condense what's already on the website to a more practical verbiage of our mission. I move to adopt this new form as our mission and to make this the first step towards our vision on our goals for this forum. So I move for the adoption.
One point, the form, I obviously, since I helped craft it, I agree. But for example, I think we should discuss Anis's proposed changes. Personally, I'm in Dipty's court about including the reference to being strong public policy against, you know, bigotry, et cetera, because while normally a mission statement is a positive, forward-looking thing, I think that's an important element. And again, it actually comes right out of the ordinance, so it's in keeping with that. But I thought you made further changes to what we are in favor of and encouraging, which I apologize, I didn't write down quickly enough, so I don't have them, but I thought were good.
It's right there.
I thought were good, and I think we ought to, at minimum, incorporate those additional thoughts, because
Anis, did I capture that?
Yeah, the only thing, and I don't mean to belabor, but the only thing that I also changed was I have and this is just me personally, but I have like a weird relationship with the word tolerance. And so I changed that to community, but that's me.
Wait, what did you say it was? Mutual
Instead of the
respect,
word tolerance, I had community
community.
instead of tolerance. For me personally, I don't like the word tolerance, but that's me.
tolerance implying you're tolerating something that, you know, is bad, but you'll tolerate it, right? That's
Correct.
where you're going with that, as
Correct.
opposed to quite the opposite, that there's nothing to tolerate.
Correct.
That's, I think, a great comment.
So instead of then community, can we think of another? Because we're talking about.
I don't think you have to have a fourth word there.
Okay.
I think,
Okay,
I think
that's
mutual
fine.
respect, cooperation, and understanding
I think that's fine.
is quite clear. But you had something else, didn't you? You had encouraging communication or some such. Got another great point.
I had to promote and further, and I said the Village of Glencoe's strong public policy on behalf of diversity, equity, and inclusion,
Mhm.
encouraging mutual respect, cooperation. Then I said community effort and understanding for all who live, work, and visit.
Community understanding? Oh, I got it. Okay, I thought it was communication. I heard
Community
communication.
effort. You could put
Got it.
communication.
Community effort actually sounds good. I don't know, community by itself didn't, but I missed the effort.
Yeah.
I wrote it very small, and these are like Walgreens glasses, so.
Hey, don't diss the Walgreens glasses. I have 20 pairs of them.
Yes, in every color.
Yeah.
Me too. So to promote, so however, going back to the point of making a strong straight statement against discrimination, bigotry, and bias. Now I know we don't have to put it up on top. We could move that at the bottom of the statement, maybe, to promote and further the village strong public policy on among those visit or do business in the village. And no tolerance for, how about no tolerance for discrimination, bigotry, or bias in any form? Is that bad? I know you don't like tolerance either, and you don't like against either, but because we want to make a strong statement that as a village, we don't tolerate that. We just don't have any place for that.
This is Amy. I do think it needs something implying to your point, Dipti. If I don't know if tolerance is a bad word in that use, but without it, I like the second statement, but it kind of on behalf of doesn't to me quite say a strong enough, gee, that doesn't fly here. You know, I just feel like it's a little vague that that's the intention in terms of the revision. So I think it needs some word of help, whether it's zero tolerance or whether it's against, you know, what you originally had or something like that.
So 2 questions. Can any of that be part of our objectives that is not actually included in the mission statement, but be part of our objectives?
Well,
and then the other thing is, because the thought of the original goal for the forum was a anti-race organization, and how are we addressing that in the mission from the originality of the forum? So would that also be included in the mission, or would that be part of the objective?
well, Reverend Gary, it's not just race, right? I mean, in general, we are for diversity and inclusion of, it could be LGBTQ, it could be disabled people. I mean, you know, our ultimate goal is to work towards or on behalf of for all inclusion, right?
But we're covering everything under the 3 terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Correct, and not standing.
We good. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And not and not tolerating any discrimination, bigotry, or bias for any of those, right? It could be race related. It could be anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, religion, whatever.
Yeah.
And are those words enough? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I sent to Dipti and Maureen, and I don't think I sent it to you, Sharon, but ETH, I grew up in Evanston, and so I still like dip in there. And the superintendent sent a really incredible letter, I thought. I think it was after the debates when there was no statement made that, you know, we take a position against, you know, white supremacist people. And in his first paragraph, it said, at ETHS, we are committed to being an anti-racist school district, championing equity, racial justice, and social justice. Our school board has adopted policies and an equity statement setting the direction of this school district, prohibiting all forms of harassment, racism, bullying, intimidation, or hate speech. There is no place in this school, no place in this community, and there should be no place in this nation where any form of racism, white supremacy, anti-Semitism, or white nationalism is tolerated. There should be no place for haters and hate groups. And he goes on. But I mean, he did say no, and there is none. And I did dig his letter. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was really amazing. But I mean, it was a very strongly worded, and I don't know if that's more at what you guys are getting at. And I can send this just the tiny chunk to Dipti if you wanted to look at it.
I'd like to point out that President Levin made a very forceful, eloquent statement on the issue of the mission of this forum. It's basically civil rights mission. And I continue to applaud Larry for what he did. So you mentioned the superintendent of Evanston High School, and I'm very pleased to hear that. But I would like to point out that our village president made also a very clear declaration of where the village stands. I'd like to see us move with more urgency toward programming issues. What do we do to get our mission statement in action?
Well, that's next on the agenda. If we can close this piece, then we can move forward, Bob, because that's exactly what we want to talk about is our goals, and then how do we move forward with them?
Well, Reverend Gary made a motion, and then I think we were in discussion. I'm not sure where we are with that.
If I may just jump in on that, a motion isn't necessary for you to say that you want to implement this mission statement. We don't have it agendized as a formal adoption of, but we certainly, if you wordsmith it and are comfortable with it, we could certainly agendize it at the next meeting if you have a formal adoption. For example, if you'd like to make a formal recommendation to bring this to the village board or something else to the village board. But if the consensus is that you'd like to go one direction on that, that would be enough for us to get the wheels in motion on that next part.
That's great, Sharon. Why don't we, like, I have captured the recommendations and I will send them to you. Maybe you can share it with the group as something that we think could be a final mission statement, and then just have them approve it on email. I'm fine with that if everybody's okay with that.
I would suggest we can certainly, before the next meeting, share a revised draft. And I would ask that if you want to formally adopt it, that we do so in the next meeting so that we're handling it appropriately.
Sure.
And in the meantime, anyone that has any additional comments or further comments about that draft, when it goes to everybody, should probably get them directly back to Sharon, then who can then share them.
Yeah.
All emails must go through Sharon.
Yeah.
Sharon will share.
So we hear. So I think
Madam Chair,
yeah.
Just for Robert Rules of Order, I therefore move to drop my motion.
Okay.
Your motion. Okay, the motion is withdrawn. Noted.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Reverend Gary. All right, moving on to our next item on the agenda, which is our forum goals and our initiatives. You know, this is nothing different from that Excel spreadsheet I had shared. I don't know how many weeks ago that was, Sharon, but this is just a very concise version of that, if I may. So what our overall goal, as it states on the website is we support community dialogue on the topics of racism and social equity, and to work closely with cultural, civic, government, and faith organizations in the community to develop recommendations for actions and initiatives that foster a more inclusive environment. So taking that overall goal in mind, and based on the goals that we had already kind of started working on, we split it as something that's really for now of the moment. So we are targeting it for 2020, and then what we have as 21 and beyond. So for 2020, I mean, this is no different from what we have already seen in that original document. So I'm going to, like going forward, use this format rather than that original one that was shared. So the first goal here on the list was to increase community awareness and involvement pertaining to racism, social equity, and inclusion. And we could maybe call it more with regards, since we're calling everything diversity, equity, and inclusion, we could, if everyone's okay, use that same terminology here. Yes?
So I'm not sure. I don't want to get into splitting hairs about this, but because we were talking about sort of top level, more like the mission statement in the last conversation, and now we're moving into more kind of operationalized goals. I think that there is, you know, I'm really sensitive to Bill Hansen's comments about inclusion having to do with more than race. I think with that being said, that is the topic du jour. That is really what has brought us sort of back to this format and increased participation. And so I'm not sure that we want to, I don't know, I don't know if there's a difference between diversity and racism in this context, but I think that certainly should be a goal, specifically as it relates to racism, because that's something that is so much top of mind for all of us right now.
So we could say diversity, racism, social equity, and inclusion. I mean, you know, because they all have its own place. I mean, diversity is just a really large umbrella, I feel like.
Correct, right, which is good because we're trying to be inclusive.
Yes, we want to be inclusive.
But I think it's important to address racism in particular. That's
okay. Well, we'll keep it there. That's fine. So the goal is to increase community awareness, right, and involvement. And there are 3 ways that we thought would be our avenue. Engaging with public safety to learn more about their policies, practices, and training. Everything we hear at the forum, people bring up to the forum, are sometimes their experiences with public safety. So as a forum, if we can be better informed, and Carrie, who is actually on our call, will be giving us a presentation in our next meeting, right, Sharon? I don't know if that's been formally determined which meeting, but we've asked if Carrie would speak to their policies, practices, what kind of training they provide, maybe dig down into some detail of how special circumstances are handled, you know, if you have a person of color versus not on either side. And it doesn't just have to be only, you know, not, it could be the officer either, you know. So those are some of the things I think it would be good for us to be engaged in and understand how public safety practices. And so we've asked Carrie to take some time and provide us with the presentation. So I know that's on the cards. It's supposed to be scheduled for one of our meetings. Sorry, what?
October 21st?
October 21st. Okay. And that has been now finalized, right, Sharon?
The chief is available to do that presentation on the 21st, yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
That's great. Yes, thank you, Carrie. So, you know, for the forum, I would say, yeah, let's come prepared with questions. We'll have a little time set aside for Q&A. And I really think this would be a good moment for the forum to start to understand also how our public safety is designed. What are your thoughts on it? Everybody's good with that?
So, it's Amy again. One thing that I think is missing is I think we have an opportunity or obligation, need to do some educating with our residents, because it seems like, say with the chalking that had gone on, we had some people that I think were residents that were trying to kind of take chalk out of people's hands. There was behavior that maybe wasn't appropriate, that people probably didn't know was not appropriate at the time. So is there a way to include in that, not just public safety, but to the community at large? And if it isn't there, then maybe it's in another point, but.
It is in another point, Amy, and you know, you make a good point. First of all, however, we don't know if they are residents who are actually coming across and harassing, in this case, the chalkers. However, you know, President Levine had also made a really strong statement to our community in more than once, I know that, in a very, very strong statement about having no tolerance for that kind of behavior. So that is communicated, and we'll come down to that point because we're trying to reach out to our community is also by working through some of these Glencoe organizations, right? Because they have constituents. And so that would be our way of reaching out to them through some of the programs that these organizations have. So that's the third bullet point here.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
Okay. So if we're good with the first, you know, I'd like to move forward to the next bullet point here. And I can't see anybody's faces, so I'm not going to know if anybody wants to, like, you know, say something. So just feel free to cut me off and just speak up, and I'm fine with that. The second point we have is engaging with our Glencoe's business community and the Chamber of Commerce to discuss the forum's goals and training for its members and maybe their employees. So, you know, if you actually look at it, there are really two major faces to the village. It's the businesses and public safety that most people come in contact with. The majority of the issues, concerns that we have heard, whether it is through, you know, Michael at Writers Theater for his employees, or for our own, from our own forum members, you know, Reverend Gary, myself, for our experiences, they have been directly with either public safety or the business community. So we thought it was very important to put that out as our goal to start working with these organizations. And so specifically the Chamber of Commerce, which would be a good avenue to get to our businesses via them. And, you know, maybe it's not training, maybe it's a small discussion that they have with the businesses on how they are currently dealing with their current employees, or people that come in and may have an experience to share that is not so positive, that may come up in their business. You know, those are things that we hear and experience, and I think we should have some engagement with those businesses, whether directly or indirectly through the Chamber of Commerce. Comments, thoughts?
That another potential opportunity for engagement with the businesses is, since not all members of the business community are part of the chamber, the village has a business services team. That's one of my hats that I wear as part of the business services team that does outreach to the business community. And one of the things that we do is a quarterly business before hours get together. Lately it's been on Zoom. But that could be an opportunity for representatives of the forum to share information, an overview of what the forum is. We do those on a quarterly basis, with our next one coming up in just under 2 weeks. And then after that, let's see, October, that would put us in January. So we're always welcome for guest speakers or topics. So that I wanted to offer that as another avenue to connect with the business community.
And yes, we would like to take advantage of that, Sharon. Now, can any number of forum members be on that, or do you restrict it to the Open Meetings Act?
We would be limited by the Open Meetings Act, but I suspect too we may be limited by the availability also of the forum members. We typically have those at 8 in the morning before many of our businesses get up and running, and so that may be the start of the day for those on the forum as well. But we can perhaps, if that's of interest, I can poll the group as to who might be available or interested to participate. It's normally about 20 minutes of presentation and Q&A, so it's not an overly lengthy time commitment.
I even feel like we as a forum should present there at that meeting and have an opportunity to talk about our goals and how we want to partner with businesses, or even what we have heard so far from experiences, and just, something that I think they should be aware of. And, this is a partnership opportunity. So if we even have a chance to introduce ourselves, I would be happy to do that.
And that's something that we could accommodate at the next business before hours, or if that's too soon of a turnaround. Again, our next scheduled one is in January. So
I don't know if we want to wait till January, but I will, that's my personal opinion. I will leave it up to the other forum members. But I think we should start acting quickly on these. And if we can get time on that October meeting, let's do it.
Yep, that's absolutely doable. So if there are...
And Hillary's already volunteered to speak. I saw a thumbs up.
I was just encouraging you.
Looks like a hand raise. I don't know.
I'm gonna need a couple of partner in crime.
I'm happy to attend and support.
If anyone's interested, I don't want to put anyone on the spot. Just feel free to send me a note, and we'll get it arranged.
Yep. And if Sharon says nobody has sent anything, then I'm going to start putting people on the spot. And I'm just going to start volunteering names. Let's do it, Sharon. I'm very excited to hear the date and the time. So, I will definitely try to accommodate in my schedule. And we can have at least 2 other forum members there, right? Without limiting the Open Meetings Act. Okay, that's great. All right. Perfect. Well, thank you. That's actually a really good way to start off on our second bullet point. It sounds like we've got action going on the first one, got action going on the second bullet point. Anybody wants to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'd like to remind you that Reverend Gary invited us to make a presentation to the Glencoe Clergy Association this past Monday.
Oh, he did?
He sent you the letter, Dipti.
He did? Reverend Gary, you sent me a letter?
I did.
You actually sent me a letter that I didn't see. I thought you were the only one who don't see responses. Do you mind if I embarrass you a little bit?
It's fine, it's fine.
Well, the Reverend Gary sent it to you and to me. And
I'm sorry, I must have missed that. Was that on email?
Yes.
Yes.
We sent another email to you, Dipti, and I believe the Reverend mentioned that the next meeting of the association is in December. Am I correct, Reverend?
Yes, so our next one would be in December. And the reason we're not meeting in November is because we're waiting to see the results of the election and to see what the tension will be in the world. Because we believe there will be some tension no matter who will be elected the next president. And then we're going to discuss our next book reading, our message for Thanksgiving, and our goals for the new year and starting with January. So that'll be in December when we would like to have somebody from this forum to present to the group.
Okay, well, first of all, my apologies that I have not seen that email. I wonder if it went into another folder, like, you know, maybe my junk folder or something. I don't know. Not on purpose, Reverend Gary. I have no idea where that email is, because I'm pretty good about responding usually if I see an email. So I have to look at it again. But thank you for the invitation.
I'm gonna stop sending emails because either you don't get them and I don't read them. So
Yeah, so just a little sidebar here, everyone. Saturday evening, I had 2 visitors at my door, very beautifully dressed, absolutely gorgeous. Reverend Gary and his wife, who came for my soiree, that he did not get the message I canceled.
Oh, shoot.
But we ended up having a really nice time. So
We had a
I'm
good
glad
time.
you did come over. So yes, I have no idea where that email of yours is, but I will look through it and I will respond.
Okay.
Anything else on this particular bullet point? And Sharon, Michael has also expressed interest to attend with us on meeting with the businesses.
That sounds great.
Okay. So moving on is our goal of reaching out and working with our other Glencoe organizations. I would like to open up that list again and start asking for volunteers. I know last meeting we spent extensive amount of time breaking down that questionnaire, trying to formalize the process, but in speaking with some of the forum members one-on-one, which I think I completely agree with their point. Let's just start talking to the organizations, cut down those questions to a very short, brief, and Sharon has already done that for us. Thank you, Sharon. So I have these that Sharon basically took all of the questions that we had in the questionnaire and put these 4 right here as a basis to start a dialogue. So let's not get into the nitty-gritty details of everything. And we don't even have to follow this format, but it is the basis for at least starting our dialogue for those of us who need some sort of a structure around that. So these are the 4 questions, and Sharon, if you don't mind, if you can just share those in email along with the rest of the information, that would be great. So the first one is, again, it covers pretty much most of what we wanted to talk about. How has your organization, I'm trying to move this window out where everybody's faces are on my screen. Okay, here we go. How has your organization observed aspects of racism and social equity in the community? What opportunities do you see for growth or improvement as an inclusive community? What potential challenges do you see? What do you see in the community that supports inclusion, allyship, social equity, and community building? So those are kind of the 4 basic points that Sharon has come up after seeing our detailed questionnaire. I would again, make this a little bit more inclusive rather than just focusing on racism. So when we go to FSG, we're not only talking racism either, or any other organization for that matter, because to Bill's point, we do have people with disabilities and mental illness and LGBTQ group and all of that. So these are the 4. If you guys have any comments on that right now, we can talk about it, but it seemed really great to me, and I just thought, like, that's great. If we can just share that, Sharon, then I think we're good. I'm seeing some head nods. All right. Well, sounds like nobody's speaking up to go against it. So sounds like we're good with that then. All right, perfect.
Well, okay, I do have a question.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I don't mean to be the squeaky wheel, but the first one, I don't know. I don't know. Like, let's say they tell us, what are we in a place to do about it? If they tell us, we've observed aspects of racism. This is how this has happened. What are we in a place as a forum to do with that information, to advocate on behalf of that organization or those people? Because I want to make sure that if we can take action with what we hear.
I'm not sure actions, what we're supposed to bring those ideas back to the forum?
Yeah, I mean, it's a
But that,
dialogue, right? It's a dialogue. We're having a conversation with them. We want to know what they're doing before we can get involved in any ways, For example, Steve, Maureen, help me with his last name, please. From the Rotary Club.
Scott Hamill?
Scott. Had approached us. They're going to have a panel discussion, and they've invited Reverend Gary and Phil, and reached out to the forum for ideas. They are going to talk about, diversity, racism, and that's great because they are reaching out to their constituents, right? I mean, the goal is that we are working with these organizations, but we're also working through these organizations to reach out to the community, the wider community that we are all struggling to have attend these calls, for example, right? So if we can understand what every organization is doing, my opinion, personal opinion, would be that it would give us that next step of, okay, well, do you have any plans? Do you have any programs? Do you have any events that you're planning? If they want the forum to be involved, maybe they want, one of us to come and speak or be a part of their panel discussion. Would you like to come back and tell us about your success stories? How successful was it? What was the response that you got from your community? Those are all the things that can build this dialogue around just that one simple question, right?
If I could just maybe make one comment on this, Anise, I think you raise a really excellent point, which is something that harkens back to a comment that Reverend Gary made early on in our meetings of what will we do with feedback? And this question, and there's no pride of authorship here whatsoever. If this isn't hitting the mark, then I would suggest we change it. The intent wasn't so much to, although an organization could share individual experiences, they may have more general observations that they've seen rather than getting into the inner workings of an organization. So for example, I'll use FSG as an example since Bill had shared a comment. FSG might have a perspective of what they've observed with regards to inclusion or racism or social equity in the community from their stance as a mental health and social service provider. So their vantage point on how they've seen these issues manifest or not may be unique based on the scope and the mission of their organization. That's what I was trying to get at with it, but if it doesn't hit the mark, again, no pride of authorship whatsoever. I would rather we change it so that the team feels good about it.
I could be misunderstanding, but what I heard Anise saying was more like, I think we as the people sitting down with the organizations need to be really clear on what our next steps are, meaning not to overpromise, not to say, in the event, if you ask, how was your organization observed aspects of racism and social equity in the community, you know, it's not our job as forum members to then say, okay, well, we're going to solve this for you. It's like, thank you so much for sharing that for us. We're going to bring it back to our forum. Or you would be welcome to come and join us at the forum and talk more about this if it's something that you think warrants that. I mean, I think that there's a way to, again, sort of operationalize our response without, you know, I just need to be very careful not to say you're going to do something that you're not.
Well, we're not policing anybody. We're not questioning their policies. We're not in that position. However, we are in a position to show empathy. So if we do hear, we are in a position to show empathy, which means we are going to understand what they are going through or what they are hearing, if they are. We are in a position to provide our input in terms of ideas to our village board, who could take it forward if they want to as a recommendation. So we are in a position to do that. So to your point, Hillary, yes, do we bring those back to our forum? Yes, we do, because we as a group could address that. You know, we have already started, you know, talking to Writers Theater as an example, you know, talking to Michael. I've had extensive long conversations with Michael and on what, you know, how it doesn't mean that their organization doesn't have any policies in place. They have great policies in place. They're working really well towards this. However, we are trying to help in ways where we can, public safety or, you know, our businesses. And that's kind of where we're coming up with our recommendations to say, okay, this is our goal. We want to understand more. We want to work and then provide that to our village board, you know, who could then take the action. I think the action is taken by the village board. I don't think we're in a position to take any action or make any commitment to the businesses. However, we are in a position to understand their situation and come back and discuss on ways of addressing them. I don't know if I said that right.
Some of the feedback too that the team gleans from these conversations could be used to inform or help shape future action items or future programs. For example, based on feedback, if there seems like there are some common themes, maybe that could lead toward a certain programming effort, whether it's a presentation or a book reading event or something like that, or something else, whether even outside of things that are public policy focused that the board may address, but there may be information sharing opportunities, education opportunities, or opportunities to support people getting to know one another better in the community. And so that may help inform some of the future actions and initiatives that the forum undertakes. I just wanted to offer that as perhaps a different angle on what do we use with the feedback and how do we, Hillary, to your point, operationalize it.
You know, I would have to agree with Anise. I am not a fan of the first question, and I'll tell you why. Maybe it's just the way the question is structured, but how has implies to me that something has taken place. And I don't want to go into a conversation kind of planting that seed off the base, you know, right off from the beginning of the conversation. And observed aspects is really a matter of perception. So I just wonder, is there a way to kind of change the question? I understand, Dipti, what you're saying, what we're going after, but I wonder if there's a way to change the question to make it a little bit more an opportunity for them to share, rather than kind of going in, planting the seed, saying,
You have issues, right? I know what you said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is like making an assumption that going in that there are issues, which actually in a way is true, because there are issues in every place. and they could be unconscious, but they are there, right? So maybe instead of how, we ask what.
Or are there?
Or are there, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. That actually makes sense. So we're starting with no assumption. Okay. You good with that, Sharon?
I am making note of it, so that way I've got it for,
But when we say, has your organization, or has your organization observed or experienced aspects of, or have your members of your organization, you or your, however you say that, however broadly you put it, could be the organization, could be its members observing aspects of racism. And then it says, and social equity. Do we mean social inequity? Or are we saying it the opposite, that we're wondering about the positive elements as well? I think there's some separation, assuming it's the latter, it's the positive elements, might be, it winds up being several short questions instead of one to get the point across, but I think that delineates it better so that they don't just focus on the first word that has such punch to it. And then the second word you may not have heard, inequity, equity, they might forget that focus.
I wonder if we should, to that point, Gary, not have it so specific to racism and social equity only, but again, go back to our diversity, equity, and inclusion,
Yeah.
and then say such as racism, bigotry, biases, anti-Semitism, what do you call that? Homophobia. I mean, just give some of those as examples so that it's again covering that wider umbrella.
I think you run the risk of turning it into a wedding where you forget to mention the uncle that flew in from Canada and he never speaks to you ever again. I think if there's a way, instead of listing so specifically, if there's a way to be inclusive and truly and authentically inclusive, the best that we know how, without listing every single thing, because we'll never list every single thing.
But
That's a great point.
That is a great point, but when we speak to them about it, it could be an example, right? Because they would be like, okay, well, what does that include? And then we could say as an example. So it's maybe not written down, but it's spoken.
Just might be broad diversity in its broadest sense or something like that. It could something that
I think we could. Right, Sharon? Instead of racism, social equity, we could just replace that with diversity and inclusion.
Again, you're using terms that are the positive. We're promoting DEI. If you want to ask about observing circumstances that are contrary to DEI, that's the way and yet say it broadly. That's the quandary, I guess, that we're trying to structure: a short, inclusive, pun intended statement about the negative. And yes, this is the fun of drafting by committee. It's not easy, let alone in a room, let alone on Zoom. I personally appreciate everyone's tolerance of doing all of this. And I do use the word tolerance intentionally.
Actually, I'm very impressed. We're not going at each other's throats and yelling or anything. We're actually civil in this whole conversation. You can laugh loudly, Gary.
No, that wouldn't be nice to anyone whose microphones or earphones are in.
So Sharon, you're good with that change then for the first one?
We've talked about a couple of different changes, and I'm not sure that I've gotten the direction that the group is thinking. We started with kind of shifting the how has to are there, and then we got into the second half of the question. So what I had originally started revising, just in a note I'm making for myself, is are there aspects of, and I think what I'm struggling with the second half of that, or if that's even not on point any longer. An option is to consider whether the other three questions kind of stand on their own and cover the positives, the negatives, and the what can be changed.
Well, then
Actually, that's a great, excuse me, I think that's a great point. If you take the first question off and you focus on the other three, and then at the end, you could add something about, are there other comments, that you'd like to make or anything else you'd like to tell us based on your own experiences or that of your organization or its members? That's as broad as the day is long, and now you're already talking about the topic.
okay. Would you like to discuss other experience?
No. Well, I said other experiences, right.
I captured maybe a note of, and I may have gotten it wrong, are there other observations or comments that you would like to share based on the experiences of your organization or its members?
That's better than what I said.
Okay, have you made a note of that, Sharon? Then I don't have to type it here.
I took a note.
Okay, great. Then I'm not typing it here. We'll take that off. All right, that sounds good.
Is that okay with other people? I mean, rolling around on that first sentence.
My concern about I'm trying to picture myself having this conversation, and so let's pretend I call Valentina or, whatever. I would just say, what opportunities do you see for growth and improvement as an inclusive community? Well, I guess if that's enough, because otherwise it sounds a little general. Yeah, I think I somehow didn't see the inclusive as much. I thought it was so broad, I didn't know where they'd begin. Sorry, go with other comments.
Well, and I think we should also start with the goal of our forum, right? So when we introduce ourselves and we start talking to these organizations, we're going to put forth our goal, what our mission is, and so that'll set the stage for these questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry.
And I think another important point that others have said, but I just want to reiterate, is that this is a starting point, or it's something that you review and then never even use. It's just a way for those that like something, short and sweet, bullet points to have when you walk into a room and start a conversation, or to remind yourself during the conversation. But it's really just whatever works for the individual based on your own relationship or lack thereof with the person you're speaking with and your own comfort level. There's nothing, cast in stone about any of this.
I don't know if to address what was said about the first sentence about improvement as an inclusive community. I don't know if maybe just adding what opportunities do you see for growth or improvement in Glencoe, blah, 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 as our being an inclusive community. I don't know if that makes it more like ownership or as a village or something like that, if that just makes it more specific, and that would help.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Good point.
And to Gary's point, we have to start somewhere. And if we start talking to these various organizations, and realize that this is really not going anywhere or is not beneficial, we need to come back to the table again as a forum and figure out, okay, well, that didn't work, what else can work, right? I mean, this hasn't been done before, and so we're all trying to figure out the best way to move forward on this, but we do want to start moving forward. And also, you know, Maureen brought up a good point earlier when I was talking to her earlier in the day about her experiences, you know, talking to the library. Maureen, are you still on the call? Would you like to share with the group, you know, your experience, and then what triggered you to think again broadly in terms of these questions?
Well, I had a conversation with Andy Kim at the library, and it was lovely, and it was so positive. He's really anxious to work with us. I really wasn't armed with the questions, but just when I said that I was a part of the forum, a lot of this just came up organically. My worry was, had I gone in with armed with questions that I was sort of uncomfortable with, that the conversation may have taken on a different tone. I didn't want him to feel, or anyone else that I would speak with, that I was questioning their ability to run their place of business or take good care of their employees. So that was kind of my concern. So anyway, we had a great conversation. He's standing in the ready to hear from us, and would really love to partner going forward. So I felt it was really a terrific opportunity for me to get to know him a little bit better, to understand better what the library is doing. And they are doing a lot. I mean, they are a gem for the community, but also for the forum to partner with. So it could not have been more positive. So these questions are great, but I agree with you, Gary, that, you know, you kind of go into this, you know, just doing the best that you can in hopes of a really good outcome and developing an ally.
Great.
All right, so are we then okay to move forward? Are we good with this format? Is everyone comfortable? Anise, does that answer your questions? I just want to make sure that we have addressed everyone's concerns and questions.
Yes.
Okay, I see some nods. Okay. Well, sorry, you know what? I didn't have the. Go ahead. Were you saying something, Anise? Oh, okay. I didn't see anybody's picture, right? So I couldn't see the nods, but now I see everyone's faces. All right, that's great then. Let's finalize those. And Sharon, if you got the notes, please send those out to everyone. Thank you so much. Again, appreciate everything you do. I cannot even keep saying that, but you kind of are our four wheels for this forum. So thank you. Then the next thing on our agenda is to discuss our future meetings. Did I skip something? Just want to make sure I haven't skipped anything.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
We've been talking about community. We have listed or stated public safety, businesses, and other organizations that we want to be engaged with. But we have not talked about the most important, which is the residents. They are the ones that make our business organizations thrive, as well as public safety. What is our plan to reach out to residents?
Great question. I think we've battled with that one for a long time. How do we reach out? However, Reverend Gary, I think that through our organizations, we are trying to reach out to our residents. a lot of our community are members of these organizations that already have an outreach to them, right?
Yes.
And as we move, oh, actually, we haven't even finished this list. I thought we had.
Sorry.
To address the community, we did have ideas earlier to have some sort of a panel or town hall sort of discussions where we would have more of the community coming there, right? It's independent of any organization. But it's a great point. And I mean, we should start talking about ideas on how we reach out to our community as well, our residents.
Reverend Geary, nice to meet you, by the way. One of the things I talked with Dipti about and with Sharon, and I don't know, is this a good time to talk about it, Dipti? Do you think it fits in? I don't know what we talked about.
Yeah.
You know what? So one of the things I had talked about was some of my hesitation around. We had talked in the last meeting about stories and sort of the power of stories, and one of the things that I was concerned about, because I didn't know how it would play out. I had visions of like going around interviewing people about their stories in Glencoe that had been difficult, and how that would be, what that would look like, how that would feel like to people that were telling their stories, and then what would we do with them. And one of the things that I think is really important, and this is really my first foray into doing anything in Glencoe after living here 23 years. My husband's been involved in a lot of different things, but a lot of my time and my efforts around social justice and social action and anti-racism has been outside of our community. And with the current climate, it's the reason that I've joined this forum. It's very important to me. And one of the things that I've learned for myself personally is when you get to know somebody's origin story, I feel like it's a lot harder to hate them or hurt them or be angry with them or feel like they're a stranger. And so one of the ideas I came up with around stories was if maybe along the mission of creating a more welcome and diverse, I have notes because I'm nervous, diverse environment was putting something together like getting to know the heart of Glencoe, highlighting a number of people who live and work in Glencoe, you know, how often and who we would talk with, you know, that would, all those details would have to be determined. But, you know, instead of talking about, you know, getting into arguments, you know, or talking about things that are diversive, you know what I mean? I'm getting really old, but that put us apart, things that would take us together. So questions like, we would put together as a forum a bunch of questions like your proudest moment, something you'd like to change in the world, your favorite childhood memory, like a bunch of these questions. And we would have to figure out what the outreach would look like. Would it be that we would just do a mass email to all the residents, you know, and all the businesses, or how would it work? And then they would be given all these questions and they could pick from them, and it would be decided, do they pick 3, do they pick 5, but they could pick them. It could be, you know, as deep as what your biggest regret to like your 5 favorite books. You know, people get to pick what they want to share, but the idea would be getting to know people that live in Glencoe and work in Glencoe, and by knowing like these pieces of our origin stories, that would be building bridges with, you know, neighbors maybe you don't know, or people that work here that you've never met, or people you see all the time but you never have an interaction with. And I think now during COVID, it's even harder. It's easier to be far apart. It's easier to feel disconnected, and it's easier to just sit with those feelings and let them fester. And I feel like this would poke at some of that. And, you know, I'm trying to see if I'm missing anything else. Just the idea is like finding a platform to connect people human to human in Glencoe, because even though we are a small village, I mean, it can feel really big, it can feel really lonely, it can feel intimidating. And, you know, I'm interested as someone who, even though I've lived here for 23 years and I do have dear people to me in Glencoe, there's still a tremendous number of people in Glencoe that for whatever reason remain strangers to me. And I know that this idea involves like a lot of logistics in terms of who would type up the bios and, you know, get a picture and how would it be, what would be the format. But I do feel like a pull and a draw to getting to know this community more, having been in it for such a long time. There are a lot of ways that I feel disconnected and a lot of things that I'd like to see different or changed or evolved. And so anyway, I've talked enough. That was just my thought.
I like it a lot. Lots to digest there, but the direction of it, as opposed to just all come in a room and go, you know, what are we all going to disagree about possibly? People from 80, 90 down to, you know, 30. There could be just lots of different views as opposed to some common bridges. So I think that's a great idea to work on, you know, to continue to refine.
I agree. I totally support it, and I think it's a wonderful way to reach out to the residents as a forum.
I totally agree as well.
And this is going to be an ongoing thing, right? It's not like a one and done thing. This is a continuous process. And yeah, we just have to get started somewhere.
I think, oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, and I'm happy to help you in any way. So.
That's what
This may be a good time as we're starting to come up with more operational objectives or initiatives to think about, and it doesn't have to be this evening, thinking about breaking off into pairs of forum members who can take the lead on getting some of these initiatives set up, whether it's this program or the coffees with the forum idea that had been raised previously, or any others that we come up with. I would offer that as a suggestion that perhaps we make that one of our next internal working goals to start to assign out some of those responsibilities. Certainly we can offer support with the village's communication tools to try to reach out and invite people to participate in whether it's this program or any others that we come up with. So as soon as we want to get to work on some of these, you know, happy to help how we can.
One of the things I didn't say, because I knew there'd have to be a starting point, and that would be, you know, how do we get the word out initially? And I thought that if we, you know, if we did come up with a saying, you know, whether it be getting to the heart of Glencoe or whatever it is, that then we could do some kind of like a I don't know what you call it, like a logo competition or something, or where, you know, where we're asking for artwork submissions through the schools. So that hits like all the kids that are different, whatever, and then their parents and the people that are teachers there, and that it would start with like, this is what we're wanting to do in part as a forum. This is what we're looking for. You know, create, you know, whatever the parameters are, and then sort of that would start hopefully maybe a buzz and people will get excited about it. Or
Yep.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that, because I think we're getting too much into the how-tos and the details. And, you know, these are all great ideas. I'm going to put it under one bucket of reaching out to residents and more resident involvement. Maybe. And then, you know, these are like Sharon said, would be really good if we can have smaller groups who can start leading each one of these different initiatives, and we can then start following through with these programs. Because I have not forgotten, Maureen, your idea about the chalking contest in the parking lot. I mean, that would be another initiative we could take on maybe in the spring as the snow melts, as something, you know, to engage our community. And again, community as in residents, you know, come be a part of a chalking contest in the parking lot. So I have added that, Reverend Gary, as another goal to our list of goals. In addition to that, we have educating ourselves, and that would be an ongoing goal, really. But we've already started off on reading some of the books that are out there. We have training that the village has scheduled for us to begin with. We're, you know, talking with other organizations and, you know, having our dialogue with each other. Those are just some of the high-level bullet points I put in there. Feel free to put your comments in email and send them to Sharon, because she's shared this document with all of you. Because I think in essence of time, I want to try to, you know, wrap up in the next 20 minutes or so. And then the third one, and then the last one here was hosting those town halls and panel discussions about relevant topics, where we would then invite people to come and we would moderate and ask, you know, questions, and have people have a dialogue. And we, again, would need to break that down into, you know, someone taking the lead. You know, we have a list of topics, and then, you know, who we would invite as speakers, and all of that. So those are kind of our goals that Gary and I thought would be a good start for 2020, because they're achievable. They're not completely out of the ordinary. They're something that we've already been working on. We're moving towards it. It's not an unreachable thing. So I just, you know, would like to get your thoughts on that. And if you could put those in email and send those to Sharon, then that would be helpful. Unless there's something that just stands out right now that you want to speak about, then, you know, please feel free to do that.
Can I just make a quick comment on the reaching out to residents and more resident involvement? And it actually is our next agenda item, the promotion of our inclusivity statement, the village inclusivity statement. I'm wondering if it would be possible, Sharon, to get, I've worked on that project, and I've been to outside, you know, events and stood with a giant inclusivity statement and asked residents to sign it. And I know a lot of our local organizations have done the same. Would it be possible to include an actual inclusivity statement along with our mission statement in maybe the next water bill that would go out to all residents? I know that other organizations I'm a part of have talked about the ability to put notices in a mass mailing that goes out. I mean, I'd love to get a whole page of the quarterly, like have it the back page, you know, but if we could put it in something that residents could actually sign and return, that would be totally cool. But it would be a way of reaching each and every homeowner in Glencoe or water bill payer in Glencoe. And I think the statement, along with our mission statement, would be a good way of getting this information out.
Look into that. I know there are utility billing inserts that can be sent out. I don't know the specifics on what size they are and the like, but happy to find that out. Also, too, you bring up a good point, Margot, about the newsletter Inside Glencoe. That's something that goes out quarterly. This issue is on its way to finalized And the next one would be in January, if I'm marching out that timeline correctly. So there are opportunities for us to develop some content for that newsletter. To the extent that we'd like to maybe try to reach out to the other Glencoe governments that are part of that newsletter, the library, the school district, the park district, Family Service of Glencoe. Those are all entities that have expressed interest in working with the forum. So if there's opportunities to do some sort of a kind of unified messaging around that, we're happy to for that as well.
Right, I was just looking at my checkbook and it looks like I paid a water bill in August, and I think those are quarterly too. So the next one would maybe be going out in October for November payment, or the beginning of November.
So not to get too into the nitty gritty with utility billing, not everybody is billed in the same month. The bills are spread out among 3 groups essentially. So you got yours in August, somebody else is getting a bill in September, somebody else is getting them in
I
October.
get it.
Everybody's on a quarterly cycle from there.
I like the concept of a joint messaging though, you know, depending on how, so it wouldn't be kind of just a standout. I could just see a resident going like, what? You know, as opposed to something that comes more holistic in its tone and kind of invites a better response, you know, from people who are just kind of in left field about this topic. So.
We can't hear you, Dipti.
Yeah, now we did. Yeah.
Sorry about that. What did I say? In the essence of time, I was wondering if is it too late to put this as a discussion item on our next meeting? Would that be too late? Would the water bills be already going out? You know, it's a great point. We want to be out. We want to be out there. We want to be heard. And if we can put it in somebody's mail, which they have to open and sign, then, you know, of course, what better way? I love the idea of having it in the newsletter, you know, even like when we have the newsletters going out online, I wonder if we can just have the link to the pledge along with our mission statement. You know, I mean, it's just simple. It's just a link. People just have to click on it and just read it.
Well, hit print and sign or whatever. Yeah, I don't know how they'll.
Yeah, it's on change.org. So. So I have to say I had not signed it for a while after being on as a chair on the forum, and in all honesty, I did do it, and so I would encourage every forum member to also sign that pledge. I think we should really get through some of these points quickly today because we've already taken up a long time, everyone's time. So if you guys are okay with this, can I proceed? Yes, okay, that's great. And then, you know, these are just goals for 2021 and beyond, which is, you know, continue our engagement with the public safety. You know, maybe we connect with them on a quarterly basis or some timing of that sort to see what are the current issues at hand, what's new, how, you know, how are things moving forward. And the same thing, we engage with community-wide events, you know, such as with the religious organizations, for an example. And we also want to have some sort of again, going back to that point of community outreach, a marketing strategy for the forums to increase community awareness. So, you know, bios, photos of the members on the website, social media presence, whoever social media friendly in this group. I am not, you know, and then coffee with the forum. And so those are just some of these ideas, but that's again, like, how do we portray ourselves out there. People should know this forum exists. So that's kind of one of our goals also for 2021. So that's what we had come up with. Now, if you have specific comments on any of these that you want to be changed or added or not, don't like on here, you know, send them off in email to Sharon, and then we can revisit them at our next meeting and hopefully finalize them at the next meeting. I feel really good that we at least came to a good conclusion on our mission statement in this meeting. If we can even accomplish one thing in such a large group, that's great, right? And I think the goals we owe it to the village, and so we should move forward on those as fast as possible. So please give this some thought. Really, we need your comments. We need to make sure this is our agreement as a forum for our goals, and then we're going to move forward on that. Right. So I am going to stop sharing my screen so I can see everyone's lovely faces now. So there are no comments on that. Can we move forward to our next item on the agenda, which I think we already discussed, promoting the welcoming and inclusive community pledge. Is there anything else that needs to be discussed on that, or we can talk about our next meeting then? Okay, so the next meeting is scheduled for the 21st. Is that right, Sharon?
Yes, that would be the third Wednesday.
Okay, and we have Carrie presenting at that meeting, and we want to focus on our goals and finalize those so that we can meet with Larry and Phil and present those goals, or have Gary present it to the village board. I'm okay either way. He is our liaison, so we want to finalize that in the next meeting as well. Are there any topics of discussion that you can think of that we want to focus on for the next meeting?
Don't we need to keep going on everything we talked about today? I mean,
Yes, we do.
yeah.
I just, outside of that, if there was anything else that you had in mind, I didn't want to just leave that out.
And to that point, to Amy's point, even between this meeting and the next, some people have already started going and speaking with organizations that they said that they were going to speak with. And to the extent you've got an organization that you intend to speak with, but haven't done so yet, I would encourage you to do it. You know, as long as you're comfortable going forward and doing it. I think we've had plenty of discussion. You've seen the ideas and the bullet points and an email go out about that, but it doesn't seem to me that anyone on this in this forum needs that as a tool, but it is helpful. But I would strongly encourage everybody to just, so that, you know, to go out there and do that, and then bring the ideas back that, you know, bring the experiences back that you do find. And then that's going to modify our agenda as we go, because we're going to find other people have good ideas about having panels, about what to do, how to do, that all fits together. And I think we're going to all feel better when we actually are experiencing more outreach in our community, as opposed to these internal discussions about how we're going to have outreach in our community. So, for what it's worth.
Excellent point, Gary. Okay, then should we move into public comments? Are there any public comments on this topic, or if you would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand button or press *9. Sorry, go ahead, Sharon.
We did not get any public comments submitted by email during the meeting.
Okay.
I don't see any hands raised from our participants.
Okay. I got a message from Michael that he had something to say, but he hasn't raised his hand, but I see he is on the call, so okay. Michael, did you still want to say something? Okay. All right. Well, then.
I just, Michael, if you're still on, I just gave you permission to unmute just in case you weren't able to get to that raise hand button.
No, I'm good. I'll talk to you privately, Dipti. I think you covered it all beautifully at the meeting. I thought this was a really productive meeting, and congratulations to everybody. Great work. Thank you for including me, though.
All right. Okay. All right. Thanks, Michael. So I guess we are confirmed for our next meeting, and we can adjourn our meeting now. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Ooh,
Second.
nobody wants to adjourn.
Second motion.
I love this. This is great. We must love each other so much. May I please have a roll call vote, Sharon?
For one moment, let me get back to my roster. Chairperson Dipti Clark,
Yes.
Member Flanagan,
Yes.
Reverend Gary,
Yes.
Member Moses,
Yes.
myself,
Yes.
Member Rubin,
Yes.
Member Scott,
Yes.
and Member Valvasori,
Yep.
and Member Young.
Yes.
All right, then we stand adjourned. Motion carries.
Great. Well, thank you so much, guys. We'll talk to you.
Debate, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let's go
Yeah.
listen to the debate, and we'll see you Saturday morning
Yeah,
for
thanks,
the
everyone.
training.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye.